back to my channel. I'm so excited you're joining me today. I am officially coming at you from Colorado. If you watched my last YouTube video, we were right in the middle of moving from San Diego to Colorado. So it's been a few weeks. We're still getting settled, as you can tell by my very bland office. So hopefully, we're going to be starting to decorate soon as well. But today I wanted to share with you why I got some of my hormones tested, what labs I got, what symptoms I was noticing, and what I did to essentially go to get my hormones tested, like the process that I personally take, because I know it can be overwhelming. Where do you go? How do you talk to your provider? Does your insurance cover it? Like all of these things I have done numerous times now. So if anything I can share with you to be able to help you on your journey, if you want to get your labs done as well, I'm here for you, because I know that it can be a journey and it can be frustrating, especially when you don't know what to do, what to turn to, and what questions to ask. So I ended up getting some of my hormones tested before we moved, because I knew we were going to be changing healthcare providers. So I'd have to find a new doctor. And I was like, I just want to do this before I go, because I have the system already set up here, and let's just do it prior. So some of the symptoms I first started noticing was that my luteal phase was again too short. So I have a history of low progesterone, and I'm going to share a blog post with you below if you ever want to know some of the signs to low progesterone. So I wrote a blog post about it a few weeks ago, and it has 6 different signs in there that you can look at for what essentially could be leading to low progesterone if you have it. So I started noticing that my luteal phase was a little too short. So many things that I had noticed like before we had Dylan were starting to come back. So it's like, I have a feeling that my progesterone is too low and I need to get this tested. So essentially what prompted getting my hormones tested, because now I definitely want to try and get them done like every year. I don't think that it's something that we should be doing all the time, because I feel like it's going to stress us out. Mentally, we're going to essentially judge our body and think that something is wrong. I've been on a hormonal journey for the past year after having a baby and breastfeeding, and just kind of watching my cycle come back into alignment. And I started noticing that some of the same issues that I had before we started trying to conceive Dylan were coming back this time around. So my husband and I are open to having a second child, and I'm getting emotional sharing that, because like there is a fear around even sharing that, because there's a part of me that's just like, well, don't talk about it because you don't want to jinx it. But then it's like, well, we're not having these conversations. And if I'm not honest with essentially why I was interested in getting my hormones tested, that's not me being genuine with you or showing up as my most authentic self. So there's a fear that I have in terms of talking about it openly, but it's more just because like I know the journey we took in terms of getting pregnant the first time around, and there's just a part of me that's just like, well, no, just deal with it on your own. And that's just not essentially how I want to be. So we are open to baby number 2. So I started noticing some of the same cycle issues coming up this time around that we first realized with Dylan. So this time I was like, okay, I know the journey, I know the process, I know what to do. I am a bit frustrated just thinking that my body's going back into that. So it's like, clearly that's where my body just naturally settles in at. And I do need to work on giving it additional support to be able to take on something like another pregnancy and delivery and postpartum journey. So I was really focused this time on preparing my body, making sure it's as strong as possible to be able to do that. So I noticed my luteal phase was too short. My period would be fine. I had no PMS. Like I really was not having too many symptoms, except after my period was over, I was really, really tired. So for about a week and a half, from my body shifting from having my period to the follicular phase to when I would ovulate, I noticed that I was being really tired. And I was like, I'm having a lot of brain fog. Like, I feel like I can't function. So I'm like, something's either going up with my thyroid, or like, is it my iron? Like, what is going on? So I made an appointment first with my naturopath before going in to get labs done with my healthcare provider, because I wanted to, basically how I work with my providers is I have more of a team that works together, and I'm the middleman between them. So I'll work with a naturopath to be able to help me figure out which labs to run. Then I'll go to my healthcare provider to be able to ask to get those tests done. And then once I have those results, I then send them to my naturopath to help read them for me and help guide me into what I need to do in terms of next steps. So I can share another video below of when I had to essentially go on progesterone supplementation when I was 6 weeks pregnant with Dylan. Low progesterone has just been like a thing in my life that keeps showing up. So before we actually conceived Dylan, my progesterone was perfect. It was like spot on. And then we got pregnant and we sadly miscarried just shy of 10 weeks pregnant. And then that miscarriage essentially plummeted my progesterone. I think some women might be able to recover better, but because I've had a history of low progesterone, the miscarriage essentially caused progesterone to be a lot lower. So we got pregnant pretty quickly again with Dylan, but in order to be able to support that healthy pregnancy, I went in and got my progesterone tested, I got my thyroid tested, and I actually had to do progesterone supplementation for the first trimester of Dylan's pregnancy. Which was fine, you know, and I worked with a naturopath to know like how much to take and get it prescribed. Like with something like that, I would not just go and buy progesterone off the counter. Maybe I would, and I have done it in the past outside of being pregnant, but because I was pregnant, I was like, I don't want to screw with that. I want to talk to a provider who can help me. So I made an appointment with my naturopath and she was like, okay, let's get your progesterone retested. Let's get your thyroid retested and let's check your iron because of the fatigue that you're feeling after your period. I have noticed that after having Dylan, my flow is heavier on days like 3 and 4. So I just didn't know, like, in terms of like blood flow, is that then making me feel more tired after my period's over? So we're like, let's just look at this and see what's going on. So then I reached out to my healthcare provider. She ordered the labs for me and I was able to go right in to be able to get a blood sample. And then within a few days, I had the results and I was able to email them to my naturopath. So she's like, your progesterone's too low, your thyroid's a bit off again, and your iron is too low. So she helped me tweak my iron supplement to be able to make sure that I could get more iron. She re-prescribed a thyroid medication for me because I actually stopped taking it after Dylan was born. It was just so much to remember. And at the time I was like, I just can't keep up with this. So like that one's on me. And then with progesterone, she was able to re-prescribe again the progesterone that I was using, knowing that we essentially would want to get pregnant when it happens. We're leaving it open to the universe. So with the progesterone supplementation too, with pregnancy, I used it every day, morning and night for the first trimester with Dylan. And then with trying to essentially elongate the luteal phase, because I clearly needed additional support, you only do it from like after you ovulate to when your period starts, and it's only during the luteal phase that you use it. So it's not something that you use all month long. And if you guys have questions about progesterone supplementation, low progesterone, I'm here for you. I have gone through this so many times at this point. So it's only been about 1 to 2 cycles that I started using the progesterone cream. And so that was certainly helpful. And then with a thyroid medication, when pregnant, was taking it every other day because one of my thyroids was just slightly off. And now I'm taking it every morning. So that is definitely a change. But those are the 3 labs that I got done, and am now working with a naturopath to kind of make sure that my cycle is back in alignment, which it definitely clicked in within like just a few days of using the progesterone cream. I can tell that it elongated it. And that's important because you want enough time for your body to produce enough progesterone to be able to essentially get pregnant. And then if you are pregnant and you want the pregnancy, to be able to have a healthy pregnancy and carry the baby to term. So that's essentially why I was really concerned about noticing the discrepancies in my cycle, and why I think it's such a powerful tool, because it helps me understand like where I need to make tweaks versus just thinking like I'm shooting in the dark and I just don't know where I'm starting. And I feel like that's what overwhelms women, is because they're just like, oh, I just don't know what's wrong, and then they're just throwing stuff at the wall. So being able to run the labs and knowing specifically what's off, and then making sure that we're honoring our cycle and paying attention to what's working and what's not. So I have another video if you've never started tracking your cycle or you want to start, and it's all about how to track your cycle, because it's so crucial to be able to understand these rhythms in your body. Because for me, it was then showing me, okay, you can try to have a baby again, but it's going to be the same thing that happened the last time you were trying to conceive, where it's not happening because your progesterone is too low. So I love having that insight and that awareness and understanding, because it helped me know what route to go down, what questions to ask, what support I then needed. And thankfully I've gone through this numerous times where I'm like, clearly my body's just doing it again. So I share that with you just to be as open, as honest as possible. You know, it is nerve-wracking to share the fact that we're trying to have a second baby. And there's a part of you that doesn't want to be like under a microscope. You don't want people to ask, but then you don't want people to like feel awkward when they do talk to you, because you're like, I know that's happening in your life. So I think maybe just in this video is where I'm going to share it for now. And I probably won't be vocal about it in other parts of my life. But if you have questions about it, I'm here for you guys. And I know that you guys are on a similar journey, whether you want children now or in the future, just kind of keeping that in the back of your mind of starting to count your cycle phases and really understand the luteal phase. I've had a lot of conversations with women where they actually don't even know that their luteal phase is too short and they're also not producing enough progesterone. It is a common hormone balance that women can come up against. So just even knowing how to navigate it, because it impacts our mood and our energy, and it can be frustrating. So my luteal phase was about 10 days, which in terms of like everyday cycle wellness is healthy. But when trying to conceive, it's recommended that it's actually 12 to 16 days. So I'm like, okay, I'm just a little too shy of what that needs to be. But thank you for joining me on this video, and I'm excited to talk with you soon.